actually love music, like with a passion. I love art and expressing just storytelling, expressing truth through other medias. And so I am an artist. I write music, all kinds of music. Lately it's been rock. Well, lately what I've been releasing has been rock. Well, actually, okay, so here's the point. I haven't released anything in 2 years, not because I haven't done anything or whatever. It's just, fears and all kinds of stuff, and just growing as a person, deciding what I want in life and all those things. So this song that was supposed to come out yesterday didn't come out. Apparently I'm sampling too much or something, which is ridiculous because I literally, wrote the song, recorded it myself. So I'm in limbo with distribution, which sounds big, but it's really not. But in the meantime, I just wanted to talk about my old album, what I was trying to do. I'm just like, I get giddy. I'm a nerd about this stuff. So it's going to feel kind of like a dissect with Cole Kushner, except I'm dissecting my own thing, which I think is really cool. I think other artists should. And not just because I think that artists don't know what they're doing. That is something maybe I need to work on myself. But I just get this. I have this feeling that artists, whether it's an A&R, like compiling songs for them or whatever, it's not them. Or if it is them, they don't get this complex or whatever the case is. And I have a whole complex that comes with all of that. This whole idea of what's a true artist and no one's a true artist and da-da-da. I can talk about that in a different video. Let's just get through this. Bootleg Suicide is a project that I decided to start all under the name of Nelson DeMello. The idea behind that is suicide is taking a life. Bootleg Suicide would be a ripoff or something. And so it's like taking of the ego, taking of your pride, taking of, this thing. So it's like this, to me, it's like a religious concept in the sense of just what does it look like to come to the end of myself. That's the point, is just coming to the end of yourself. And so with this album, it is called Rebel Without a Cause. Now, here's where it gets funny. That's a movie in the 60s or 70s with James Dean. I didn't know that at the time. So what the case was, and it's the whole thing. My parents used to call me that when I was a teenager, and it wasn't like often. It wasn't like, oh, rebel without a cause, rebel without a cause. But it was like, it happened. They called me that, and that just stuck, right? You're being angsty. You're being this teenager. You're doing all this stuff, but really, why? You have everything. This is a first world country. We're middle class. You're being angsty for what? Which is ironically kind of the whole point of the James Dean movie Rebel Without a Cause. Now, I write this album, and then I hear about this movie, and then I watch the movie, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy, which goes into the name of the song that was supposed to be released yesterday, The Death of James Dean, right? So if Bootleg Suicide, the whole idea is to like kill parts of yourself and deny things about you that, whatever, that's one thing. And so let's just go through the Easter eggs and like what songs are about, the influences I got. I am going to get like really personal, and like maybe this would condemn me if this album ever blew up, post release or whatever. If it blew up, and then if people needed evidence of, hey, yeah, you stole my stuff or whatever, it's this video. I'm confident in doing this because I know every major artist has done this, even if it's a producer. And because I listen to just such a vast volume of music, and for some reason, melodies stick out, ways of singing, I'm just being honest about it, but I know that every artist does, and it's fake of them not to admit it. And maybe it's just for legal purposes that they don't, that they think, oh yeah, well, I've created everything from nothing, that whole spiel. It's all false, right? It's all wrong. So this album is split in half, pretty much. So there's that angst, very distorted, charged up, just moving forward attitude. And this is reflected in the album. I'll probably put a picture right here. Yeah, it's reflected in the album, and that is very heavily influenced by Scott Pilgrim, the movie, their band, the soundtrack to that movie is probably like one of the best rock albums ever, to be honest. It's so freaking good, dude. And I got a lot of inspiration from that. Even the drums, I remember writing the drums in and imagining the girl in the band playing like she could only play the snare and the hi-hat at different times, which for a drummer that's like ridiculous, you know, but it's a punk band. The heart of punk is I barely know this instrument, but we're going to play it and get angry and, you know, talk about our feelings. And they just show that in the movie so well. And it just brought a simplicity to like a lot of the songwriting that I was like, this is brilliant. Like, why am I trying to do all this, like, you know, superfluous, like magnanimous, okay, I don't even know if I'm using these words right, but like this giant, you know, spectacle thing, and just like go to the basics, just chug fifths, power chords, and just let's do this. And so yeah, I am heavily influenced by that. So the punk that I'm super heavily influenced by, Idols, Turnstile. Idols, for the sheer sake of they have a feeling, they know how to emulate that with sound. And so like if they're feeling like dark, you have a freaking like the guitar with super distorted doing harmonics and it just sounds like eerie, you know, or they're just chugging or whatever it is. Like they know how to make feeling into sound. It's great. Turnstile, what I love about them is that they're so fluid with their rhythm and tempo and genre. Like they'll go anywhere and everywhere because it's interesting and fun. 8x80, if you didn't get the reference, it is Jesus says to forgive 7x70 times, and the song's called 8x80. So, you know, it's like I've forgiven you more than I need to. And just on the title of the song, it could be about boundaries, but it's just that idea that, let me just look at the lyrics here. Sorry, I don't remember. It's 2 years, guys, and I don't perform at all. Actually a little shy to do that. Yeah, how about you put that brain you love to good use? How about you remember the past from my point of view? I said yes, I agreed to the terms you left for me. On my chest, gossip queen, got myself from keeping the peace. I know you say that you care, agree to disagree. I know that you'll never leave, but this is about me. 8x80 times, I've forgiven you my whole life. Maybe it's a sign. I have plans, understand. It's like, you know, you've hurt me. I want that separation, right? The influence there would be like Green Day, would be that era where like punk rock was pop and everyone was trying to do it and stuff like that. That era was just like influence for me, you know. I just tried to, that 8x80 would be like the hit song. So I Am is, again, it's that punk rock song that sounds very much like something off of Scott Pilgrim, very fuzzy, very distorted. And it's just this defiant thing. I'm the bad guy. Like, yeah, I am. Like, I hurt you. Hoorah. And that's, you know, it's triumphant because in this relationship, you know, there's just a lot of abuse. And like when you finally stand up for yourself, you feel grand, you feel mighty, you know, you feel powerful, like you've done something. And so, and that's it. And it's like, I'm the bane of your existence. Like if you read some of the lyrics, like, I'm the poison that makes you sick. I'm the toilet that makes you cringe. I know you're disgusted by my defiance, and I'm proud of it, kind of deal. And, you know, and I think at the end of each verse, and I like, it's kind of like the pre-chorus verse, but it says, and I do it again. I'll do this as many times as it takes for me to have my freedom, as many times as it takes. And so I'm fighting. I'm doing that. I'm defiant. You think it's disgusting. You know, this is whatever. I'm all about it. And so Baby Boy, I don't think I have the lyrics on my notes here. I write it in the perspective of he's going through this, but that's me. And so, wah, baby boy with no diapers, truth be told, you're the teeth of the tigers. He was young, he was brilliant, stone cold, he had to be resilient. Keep it coming, he hasn't made a killing, a standoff, giving guns to our opinions. I think that line is fire, by the way, because anyone who's intimate with anyone knows that opinions, the more intimate you get with people, the deadlier their opinions and their disagreements with you and can be. It's a standoff where we can't agree on anything, right? We're at that point and we're giving guns to opinions. I know I'm just like reciting myself, but the idea is that intimacy just, it has a thing. Even though I'm defiant and I want this battle, I want, whether it's separation, whether it's just hurting you back the way you hurt me, whatever that is, there's just still a lot of deep love for that other person, because there's that intimacy. Like, you can only hate something that you love, to be honest. That breaks down kind of, you think, any kind of discrimination. It's like, how's love and hate in that thing? That could be drawn out. I'm going to miss the point if I go down that road, and I can acknowledge that. But for this sake, for this context, let's talk about, you have to love something to hate something. For you to be hurt, and for that hurt to turn in, that pain to turn into hatred, you need to have that love, that softness for that thing in the first place. And so, and these are, all the things that I try to like touch on, right? And again, I guess I didn't talk about this, but the whole point of all of my albums, anything that I ever release, is to have these conversations, is to talk about these complicated, convoluted ideas, like loving and hating someone who's abusive, right? That's a tough thing. And I guess maybe I haven't talked about the point of my album. So personally, this was an album of that defiance, and then what we'll get to, the guilt of the defiance, and then the cycle that becomes with my parents and I. What I try to do when I'm going through something is I go through it, I'm very cathartic, and then I come back with a rational brain, and I try to tell the same story in a generic, personal way, so that, let's say, there was a lot of controlling in my life, right? I was actually just talking to my mom about this. I realized, looking back, that I desperately needed to express myself, to understand who I was and all these things. I didn't feel like I had the space to do that in our household. I think that there was an image that I needed to keep. There was a lot of questioning and like little changes. If I wore skinny jeans, it's like, dude, are you going gay? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Or if I grew out my hair, it was like, dude, what's going on? It wasn't just, oh, he's just expressing himself. Let him like try to find himself or be a part of that process somehow. I don't know. But so I know that everyone doesn't go through that is one glimmer of the human experience. This love and hate, this guilt and angst, like all of that, it applies, right? Controlling boyfriends, mother-in-laws that are always trying to talk bad, manipulate, whatever it is, relationships that are, doesn't even have to be abusive, but just like, you have to have this relationship for like in one way or another. But it's hard because the other person kind of sucks, if we're honest. And maybe you're in, you don't want to admit it or whatever the case is. I know, and we'll get into that, and that makes this creates a lot of tough conversations, but that's kind of the point, right? I love tough conversations. I love the hard to swallow pills after the fact, right? So when I was going through this, I was in college, I was going to therapy and, talking heavily with my pastor, and so it was working in tandem. Like, I'd go to therapy, get out of therapy, go to my pastor and be like, hey, this is what we talked about, what's your opinion, how should I see this, what does the Bible say, and I was just doing that triangle, and then coming back and writing about it, being cathartic and all that. So that was the triangle that I was going through. And so all of this was happening. There's a lot of hard to swallow pills because I was just trying to advance. I didn't care so much about whether or not the truth was comfortable, this and that. I just cared about the truth. If I was in the wrong, I needed to know. And the truth was way more complicated than that and all that. Okay, I'm all right. I'm all right is like this defensiveness that I have, the perspective is like someone's trying to talk to me or whatever. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine, and I try to do that even with my voice. Like there's a part where so a friend of mine who produced Mix, let's say the last like 70% of the album, his mom was listening over, going through the room, and she was like, is he sick or something? Like, does he have a stomach ache? And he's like, no, but I mean, yeah, he's trying to give that feeling. And so it's half, at the time I was just not confident about singing. And so I was like, But it was also that feeling of like, I do need to convey this thing of like, I'm not actually all right. Whatever the interest in me was of the person in the song towards me, and I was like, hey dude, I'm fine, like, and I know your antics, I know what you're trying to do, like, it's not gonna work, you know, this and that. And then there's just this point in the song where it kind of just flips off, and then I'm exploding, and then the song kind of ends. Cool. In the summary of songs that I wrote, because what I try to write a narrative, and so I get cathartic, I write all the songs, and then I compile them later in a cohesive way. And so at the time, I write summaries of songs so that I can order them, and that's what I'm looking at right now. There's a song here that I don't think I even recorded. It's called "You Were Never There." I looked up the lyrics, and they're like, oh, well, let's actually look at them. It's like dark, but like very, the lyrics are kind of good, dude. You were never there. So it's this was a mistake, the only door that keeps me afraid, and now you know everything, I've got nothing else to show, but I think you've won. I'll go back to being an obedient son. I can't take no more, I'm finally done. I'll go back to staring at the sun and biting my tongue. Just do what you need to do to me. Let's play your game, turn it around, and blame myself again. I know I'm confused about which one way I want to do things. My mind is split these days. Yeah, that didn't turn into a song, but that was supposed to be somewhere in the middle, which it makes sense, but I think why I didn't go after it probably was either sonically it didn't fit, or it was too on the nose. Like I said, it was like specific to like parental and child dynamics, and I wanted to keep it more general. But then the song after that was this song that was super heavy called Back to How It Was. That's like a metal song. Oh, that actually reminds me, a huge influence on the layout of the album was Nevermind by Nirvana. You can't really hear it in terms of influence, but I think Nevermind is, I think, the best rock album of all time. So this is where it gets fun. Back to How It Was is 3 chords, I think, if I remember correctly. Too Many Times, the next song, is the same 3 chords, but the soundscape changes dramatically. You have that hardcore sound, it's crunchy, it's screamo, and then it goes into like this, I don't know if Trip Red really explores in that. I remember his voice being an influence, but I don't remember him, I don't know if it's Trippy Red or Trip Red right now. I don't know if it's a style or not, but it's just this like rock, but with a sense of hip-hop-ish, like influence, sonic influence of hip-hop, still being kind of rock. Like X, or Trippy Red, or whatever the case may be, but just that kind of style. And Too Many Times, the first verse is exactly the same as I Am, but where in I Am I was defiant, angsty, victorious, I sing it in defeat, in shame, in guilt, you know. And I think that's so freaking, like, it's, you could say that it's lazy, but I really tried to make that switch of like, it's a different side of the same coin kind of thing. And I was just really proud of that. It's just how it is. You would be surprised to know that out of all the influences I could possibly have for a song, G-Eazy and his rock album is the influence for this song. Out of all things, it's the Cheap Drugs and Free Porn, Cheap Drugs song. And when you listen to it, you'll be like, dude, it's the same song. I know, I apologize for that, but it really is. It's just a song that I listened to actually 75 plus times since it came out, and the end of or whenever Spotify does its thing. I listen to that song at least 3 times a day, 3 times a week. I listened to that song a lot. It was just burned in my brain. Couldn't get it out, so I just wrote that song, basically. But with my flavor, taste, and, you know, I guess lyrics. Because also, you know, you listen, that song, the lyrics are kind of like a false deep, you know. And I don't mean to offend anybody. It's just when you're not actually a deep thinker and you try to be deep, at least on this side, me truly being a deep thinker, a deep feeler, I listen to that, I'm like, you're trying. You know, I don't know what he's actually up to. I don't know if he even wrote the song. But that goes on. Bright Lights, there's this band named Tender. They are like a synthwave R&B kind of style, very synthy. They are from England. I randomly found their sound. I loved it. And that's kind of where I get the whisper singing vibe. Obviously, that song is one of those songs where it's like, oh, I hear of the reference, but it's not the song. It's not the same. Like, that happened to that. It's just how it is, though. It sounds like almost T for T to the other song. I feel bad about that, to be honest. But yeah, In the Wrong, straight up Red Hot Chili Peppers. I didn't even think about it until after the fact. I was just trying to write another upbeat song, and honestly, In the Wrong, and this is where I'm growing and I'm learning. The track listing, In the Wrong, should be somewhere higher up where there isn't that sonic shift, because it's very basic in the soundscape. Not basic in the sense of it's just not synthy like all the other songs. It is very much just bass, drum, guitar, singer. You know, it's very classic. But yeah, he gives that Red Hot Chili Peppers vibe straight up. The rap singing, singing kind of deal. Because I was writing In the Wrong, and I just needed another fast song. I'm really good at the slower songs, holding out chords, melodic, like filling it up with instruments, whatever the case is, right? But with faster songs at the time, I remember specifically just writing a lot of slow songs and being like, oh, I need to get out of this comfortable zone and write something fast. And so it was challenging to come up with the rhythms and for like the cadence, right? Or just rhythm of a more upbeat song. Like, I had to rewire my brain a bit. And so that's what In the Wrong came out to be. And then I realized, oh my gosh, this sounds exactly like Red Hot Chili Peppers. Whoops. Then you have Rebel Without a Cause. Rebel Without a Cause, the feeling of About You by XXYYXX. If you haven't listened to that song, do it. It just like puts you on another universe. It's such a crazy, like, ethereal experience. You're just kind of floating there when you listen to it. I would listen to it with like headphones. Like, if you've got Beats or something like that, just put them on and just float, bro. I sound like a bot. I promise I don't do drugs. I mean, it's not that it's bad or good or anything, but like, you know, I gotta make my appearance known. Dude, that song just gets me floating. And Rebel Without a Cause is kind of that, right? There's very little rhythm. You're just kind of floating. And then all of a sudden the bass with the tremolo hits with the triplets, and then you're whoop, 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 and then you're kind of more grounded, and then that speeds up, and then boom, the drums kick in, and everything goes back to dun 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 dun, and it's just punk again. I messed up again. This is album number 2, and this is where I was more honed in, right? If you listen to the first album, it's kind of a train wreck, but this one is less of a train wreck, but it's not like fully there. I missed this one detail that I'm upset. I don't know if this happened it was because of the producer that finished up the last 30%, if I forgot to mention anything. I don't know what happened, but it came out this way. What I wanted was for me to repeat, because at the end I'm repeating I'm a rebel without a cause. And so then, in the same way that there's that flip between like angst and then to guilt, right? I wanted to do the same thing but opposite. And so I'm repeating, I'm a rebel without a cause. I'm a rebel without a cause. And so at first it's like, it sounds a little shy, like a little guilt. I'm a rebel without a cause, you know? And then I wanted to get it to like I'm a rebel without a cause. And I wanted the bass to go from that smooth sound into that crunchy sound that goes into the first song. Because I wrote the chords that way, that the ending chord, so it's I teeter between like F major and G major, F major, G major, F major, G major. Well, the finishing note would be the C, right? I think if I need a piano. I'm not that good, but you know, whatever. If that's the case, I wrote it in that way where like the ending note would be the first note of the first song. Tyler the Creator does that with Igor, and I thought it was fantastic, and I was like mind blown. I was like, dude, what a wonderful way to write a story like this. In Tyler's album, his context is he's like in love with this person, they're fighting then, and then they're just friends, but and then when you're friends and intimate and this and that, like that bubbles up emotions again, and then you go through the whole thing again. Or it's another person, you go through the same cycle with another person. And so that's kind of the idea behind Igor. I thought that was so lovely and fantastic. This is the kind of storytelling that I aspire to do. So that's where I went wrong with the first album. I made this cryptic, deep, condensed album that anyone that would listen to it is like, what are you trying to do here? And you just, to summarize, like the idea was that we all experience pain, and pain with a capital P is what unifies all of us. Even if you're like a millionaire, you have problems in your life that make you want to kill yourself. And if you're poor, you have problems that, you know, make you do things that, you know, you wouldn't have if you had the money, or whatever the case is. No matter the color you are, you're going to struggle. And pain is a unifying thing. And that was supposed to just bring up conversation. Like I was trying to end racism and end, you know, classism and all this crap, just any kind of discrimination. But like, who am I, you know? But maybe one day, I don't know. Just kidding. Who am I? All right. That was the point of all of that, but you wouldn't get all of that because, you know, like the first three songs, I'm not going to talk about the other album, sorry. So yeah, that is Rebel Without a Cause, which brings into the conversation these elements, right? We already talked about how to hate someone, you need to love them. Because it's a disappointed love, it's a hurt love that creates hatred. And so that's a tidbit. I think in this whole process, though, the hardest pill for me to swallow is that there is such a thing as being abusable. And if you're not ready to hear that, if that sounded way too jarring, just turn it off, move on. But if you're curious, that was something that I had to understand. And it was because of this. I'll use another example before I get into my specific example. If you're too good of a person, everyone's going to step on you. And it's not that humans are evil and they all want to step on you. It's that if they have the opportunity to make their lives easier and you're willing to make it hard for yourself to make it easier for me, I'm going to take it, dude. You know, they're not thinking of like, well, if I do that, I'm burdening this person and this and that. Half of this being abusable thing is just making yourself known. Hey, boundaries, limits, like, hey, that is too tough for me. Sorry, I can't do that. You know, that right there cuts you into not being abusable. I realized that I was just not making myself known. Like my parents didn't know I had a problem with them until I told them I never wanted to talk to them again and didn't talk to them for like a year, you know. Before then, they thought everything was fine. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about. And it goes deeper. If you think about the prey that narcissists and sociopaths, these people chase after, they're chasing after people that are like that don't have armor, that don't have the esteem and security and the self-respect to be like, no, that you can't do that, you know, because it's just this thing, this innate drive in them to see, to push people as far as they can go. And if you let them, they'll go all the way. They don't have the decency to be like, all right, whoa. Like, hey buddy, you need to work on yourself. You can't let people be doing this to you, girl or guy. Like, what are you doing? They don't have that decency. I mean, I think you don't even have to be a narcissist to not have that decency. I think some people are just so self-conscious, right? They're thinking about themselves only, that they don't really see how other people are dealing with that. Another thing is like knowing if you're being abused and stuff like that. That's a tough thing. You never know. Sound of reasoning. Sorry, I'm trying to end things quick because my battery's dying and this is a whole ordeal. But it's just conversations like that are worth having, either with a psychologist or a pastor, or just, if it is your pastor, talk to someone else. Sometimes we are in situations like this, we don't know how to deal with it. And that's kind of how I went. I'm a trailblazer. Everything in terms of emotional health, in terms of spiritual maturity, in terms of like physical health, in terms of all this, I'm trailblazing. No one really just sat there and be like, hey, I think you're dealing with this. I had to do it. My dad once apologized to me saying, I'm sorry you had to be the parent for a minute there. And I was just kind of drawn back, like, well, I didn't even think you would have got to that conclusion. I mean, well, that's crazy. But it was just like in passing, he said that, and I was just like struck. One thing I've learned in my spiritual walk is that our life right now doesn't have to be this way. If we're struggling, this isn't the end all be all. There is another side. You can go deeper. You can go farther. And that's not just talking in hope. That's talking in reality. There is things that we can grow and learn that changes how we see people, changes our relationships, changes who we hang out with. We start attracting better people with better energies. We start letting go of people. And this can be like an organic process if we allow ourselves to grow. And so I'll just leave it at that before everything dies and shuts off. But thank you guys for listening. If you did, tell me what you think, please. I love comments, actually. I like engaging in conversations. See ya.